Hi everyone, it's Jerry. I have a sharp game to share with you from 2017. On the white end, Garry Kasparov playing against Molly Nesham. This was played during a simul. We have a Sicilian Defense, and in response to E6, it's B3, the Westerinen Attack. Now, for the most part, this early stage, non-confrontational, just one little punch here thrown at the knight. It remains central. Each side goes about their own little setup from here on out. This guy has an eye on F4. It's ruled out altogether. A double fianchetto setup here for Kasparov. Both sides castle. And from here we have a top move in B5. Now this is an instructive moment. If you only look at this position as black and say, well, I just want to develop my light square bishop. Let me just go a step and bishop B7 to follow. You're already asking for trouble. There's a big difference between B6 and B5. So if black played the B pawn only one step, white could continue here with C4. And now where does this knight go? If you go here, tough day at the office. Where are you going next? All your forward moves, none of them are good. If you run forward here, well, white could cover the D3 square by playing D4. The queen covers it now. And after a capture, yep, this guy right here ends up sidelined. This structure kills the knight. There just happens to also be a threat here of a fork. White is doing really well in a position like this, with this out of bounds piece. How are things different with the move B5, the move in the game? Well, the follow-up in the game here is knight A3. If we revisit now this C4 advance, things are different. Black can take on C4, and the big square that comes to mind here is B6. It's no longer occupied by a pawn. This is a fine response right here, exerting pressure on white's position in some way. C4 is a target. And this knight is stable. It's a productive piece. If play continued here with D3, babysitting the pawn, black could break down this point and start to expose a backward white pawn on the D file. All right. In this game, top move, B5 played, knight A3, and from here, A6 is played to defend B5. The computer is leaning towards this invasive B4 advance, kicking the knight, and then now following up with A5, A4 ideas. It's drawn to this diagonal. One benefit for black here, establishing a pawn on B4. In a way, it's saying if you want to invite your D pawn into the mix, you're going to severely weaken your C3 square, and I may pounce on that square with my knight. All right, in this game, it is A6, followed up with C4, chop, chop. We are 11 moves in. In the computer's eyes, this game remains level. You would not be able to tell from this position here that black is a 1,500 point underdog. This has been a fine game up until this point. Some slips now occur. And it's a very common slip, this next move here by black. I would guess the majority of players are going to pull off this next move. In the game, it's bishop B7. How natural. It's not a losing move, at the same time, not a best move. Computers leaning towards this idea of A5, A4. It's drawn to this diagonal for the bishop. All right, in this one, bishop B7, sensible enough. Now comes D4. And from here, queen C7 is played. Now, this one is a much clearer error. With this tension, the C file is going to open up at some point. the queen will not feel comfortable on an open file, especially with these two rooks still around. You're asking for a pin one day on the c file. She's misplaced there. In plenty of Sicilian positions, the c7 square for the black queen is going to be fine, but those are in situations where white still has a c pawn, and this is not a half open file for white. What does the computer want to play here? It says go ahead and initiate this exchange on d4. In a way, there's one piece being cleared out now along this diagonal. Black would be one step closer to getting this light square bishop exchange in there. That would be ideal for black. This guy is more valuable than this one here as Mr. Defender of these weakened kingside squares. All right, not a direction we go. Black does not initiate the capture on d4. Queen c7 takes on c5, rook c1, sure enough. This guy is not feeling comfortable, backs off. Knight's centralized now, and from here we have a5. At this stage, the idea of a5 and a4 is too late, now that the position is much more opened. What the computer wants to play here says, yet again, go ahead and initiate this exchange on d4. And I must admit, in response to this best move, I was initially drawn to developing a new piece, recapturing with the queen. But it says, in fact, it's better to take with this bishop. It has its eye on a knight b6 move. This intersection square would already be threatening. Knight b6 targeting the rook and the queen. If you take with the queen, and the queen is kicked, let's say, over to this g4 square, I'd like to point out a position like this, black should be challenging this queen as soon as possible. f5 in this position is a top move. Takes en passant, knight recaptures. We would be looking at a completely level game. All right, in this one, no capture on d4. a5 is played. I'd like to touch on one other possibility here for black. I always like to know what's going to happen in the event of a pawn capture. Where's my compensation as white if knight takes e5 is played here? This is an important note to make. Very easy to go wrong here as white, or I should say very easy to not pick the correct or best continuation from here with these knights all huddled together. I was initially drawn to knight takes e6, landing a fork, and then next up bishop takes knight. That is in fact not best. It's only calling it about +1. What is best, and by best I mean +3 advantage, is knight f5. Now let's just pause for a moment. What's going on here? We got these three minor pieces under fire, ready to swipe this guy. Knight takes bishop to follow with check. Knight takes knight is a threat straight away, targeting the queen. If this knight runs to, let's say, g6, there's going to be a problem on g7. I'd like to look at two captures here. The knight captures. Pawn takes knight, what's happening? Knight takes knight, what's happening? Well, if the f5 knight is captured, here's how white could continue. Get the material right back, target the queen. If black counterpunches with d6, white counterpunches, takes on d6, and hits the queen. This is a winning continuation for white. If the queen moves in this position to now secure the knight that is lacking a defender, 2 on it, only 1 defending right now. If queen c6 or c5, queen c6, there's knight a5. Light square bishop will be tracked down next, and then this will collapse shortly thereafter. And if queen c5, we have this deflection idea with b4. Knight takes b, bishop takes bishop. Queen takes b, bishop takes knight. And if queen b5, white continues with this deflection idea a4, and white will soon win the material. Finally, looking at the other knight capture, knight takes knight, I thought, okay, we just recapture with the rook, swing it over here, go in for the kill. That's a winning idea, recapturing with the rook. But this is in fact a mate in 4 already, with this knight and bishop trained on g7. Queen g4, and there's no good defense on this point here. Capturing either minor piece, who cares? We only need one supporting our queen when she's on g7. Computer suggesting silly moves like queen e5, giving up the queen, giving up the bishop. Here's the detail. If you want to prevent the queen from getting to g7, playing g6, yep, the minor pieces alone will deliver mate. All right. In this game, we do not have the pawn grab. a5 in this position. Now comes knight f5. Pawn takes knight. There's bishop takes knight. Fractured kingside. Half-dead d-pawn. Not appealing. Black tries rook e8. Bishop takes knight. Follows. Pawn takes bishop. And now we sweep in here queen in combination with the knight. Threatening mate. That is defended. Now white has all the fun. Check. Only move. Check only move. Check only move. Followed up with knight d6. Threatening mate on f7 with the knights alone. In the game, rook e7 is played. If pawn captures knight, that's not stopping mate. The queen's eyes, you remove a defender of g8, but also open up the queen to defend g8, and she's got control over g7. Knight f7 in this position would be mate still. All right, in this game, rook e7 on board. Kasparov insists on trying to get a knight to f7, queen f4 on board. Now the knight is captured. Follow up, e6, discovered check, which paves the way for another discovered attack. Right around the corner now is knight f7 check, and the queen will fall. In the game king g8, if you're blocking with d4 or bishop to b7, there you go. Knight lands the check, queen's a goner. In this game, king g8, pop quiz. How would you continue here? Feel free to pause the video. All right, a beautiful finish to this one. We have checkmate in 2. Queen f7 check, rook takes queen only move, pawn takes rook, mate. What'd you think of this one? What do you think of this Westerinen attack? Feel free, as usual, to leave any feedback to this video in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed it and maybe took a thing or two away. That's all for now. Take care. Bye.